Welcome everybody to this New Year's podcast from Cumbria Wildlife Trust. This month, we're going to be looking at young people and young people involved in the work of the Trust, which I just think is a fantastic idea and brings energy and vitality and all sorts of great things to my department and across the Trust in general. So later on, we've got Liz out and about, our roving producer. She's going to be talking to some of our current apprentices. We have these brilliant apprentice schemes that work in my department, in the reserves department. And we'll have a look at some of the education work that the Trust does, which is really important, getting even younger people involved and interested in wildlife and nature conservation and the world around them, the countryside around them. And first of all, I'd like to introduce this month's co-host. It's Danny Poland. Hi, Danny. How are you?
Good morning, Joe. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, very good. Danny, you have been one of our youth trustees.
Yes. So it was a fixed 2-year trusteeship. I really enjoyed it. I learnt loads. I was on the board for 2 years. It was usually about 6 meetings annually.
You'll get a really good idea as to the overview of how an organisation like ours runs, better than I will, really, because I don't go to board meetings. I get called in once in a while to brief the trustees on certain things. So you'll get this real rounded experience of how a charity, how an organisation like ours actually manages.
It's true, yeah. So we had like loads of board papers to read, and it was all really interesting information, and we would debate and vote on different matters. But it was great to have the opportunity as a young person to be part of a board of directors as a trustee.
Hats off, I think, to the Trust for trying to diversify their own board in this way. And you came through an apprenticeship yourself as well, didn't you? Tell us a little bit about your apprenticeship.
Yes, so I did my apprenticeship in horticulture, and I've always loved the outdoors, and I love plants as well. So it gave me the perfect opportunity. Came up after doing a little bit of experience at a garden centre. And after getting my GCSEs and A levels, I did a level 3 in horticulture at Larch Cottage. Yes, and I really enjoyed it, and I learned an awful lot about growing food and about orchards and everything. You had meadows on site. It was fantastic, and there was a high emphasis on environmental issues.
Brilliant, because I think, and this comes out later on, and especially I think when Liz goes to meet the school children, there's something there just about a connection with the outdoors, isn't there? With the soil, with how things grow. I mean, we're very focused here at the Trust about nature conservation, but there's a much wider thing, isn't there, about people's association and connection with the outdoors. The other thing I was going to say, Danny, was about your ambitions, and you're doing some volunteering on reserves and wanting to get into nature conservation. And this is how we all came through when we started, So my interest was piqued in birds and flowers and wildlife from living in the Lake District. I started volunteering on a nature reserve, eventually got onto a scheme like an apprenticeship scheme, and I was able to do my tickets. I got my chainsaw and all the rest of it, and came out of that with a qualification in conservation, and that kicked off my career as well. And now 30 years later, I'm coming to the end of my career, and it's brilliant to see new people coming through and doing exactly the same thing and going out into the sector and making a difference. It really is. Brill. Anyway, we'll cut now to Liz, and Liz is on Hutton Roof this time, which is one of our premier limestone sites, and she's talking with Scott, who's our Southern Reserves officer, and he's the one who's managing our Southern apprentices, Saskia and Amelie, and they're going to give us a bit of an insight into how the apprenticeship scheme runs and what they're getting out of it.
Good morning, Scott.
Good morning, Liz. How are you?
I'm grand, thanks. How are you?
Not too bad at all.
So, Scott, can you explain who you are, what you do at the Trust, and tell me where we are today?
So my name's Scott Petrick. I'm the Reserves Officer, so I'm looking after the Southern Reserves all the way round from here at Hutton Roof through to Lowick Common at Ulverston. And yet today we're here at Hutton Roof, so this is probably one of the most important limestone pavement sites that we've got in the county, if not in the UK. It's a fantastic landscape. Every time I come up here, it's just mind-blowing how kind of it's formed and crazy it is for rare species. It's a brilliant place to be.
We've come here today to catch up with a couple of the apprentices. Can you tell me a little bit about that scheme and what sort of people you recruit?
Yeah, so the apprenticeship is a fantastic scheme that we're able to offer in partnership with Craven College and Yorkshire Dales Millennium Trust, who are our funders. So we're able to take on within our reserves team 3 apprentices, mainly aged sort of 16 to 24, looking to get into conservation as a career. So they join us for 18 months and we train them up to essentially be the next generation of conservationists. So hopefully really rewarding for them. We've seen our apprentices go on to be reserves officers and other roles at different organisations, as well as with us here at the Trust, but also personally really rewarding as well. You're kind of taking these people from essentially not knowing anything and from the very start of their career, helping them develop and then going off and seeing them go into the world. It's quite nice.
It sounds fantastic. Can you take me to meet them?
Yep, so we've got Saskia and Amelie out on site at the moment, and they're just doing a bit of work on our limestone pavement habitat.
So Scott, tell me, what sort of people are you looking for?
Very much people that, aimed at people, the young generations, I say, sort of 16 to 24 age bracket, and the apprenticeship is designed to be for those who haven't got any kind of previous experience in doing this as a career. It's very much taking them from the beginning. So you don't need any previous experience, just that kind of enthusiasm and the passion for getting out and making a difference in the world.
So tell me a bit about what the apprentices actually do.
So here we're working on limestone pavement, so we've got areas which have become slightly scrubbed over or slightly disconnected, so we've been working on those to reconnect those areas. But the apprenticeship scheme is, we try and make it as rounded as possible. So although they're based within the Nature Reserve team, it's very much a sort of a collaboration across the Trust. So we get them out with our marine team to go and do seal surveys or work on the seagrass project. We get them out to go and help with the red squirrel project, up with Josh. They'll be going up to help with places like Skidder, swapping and going up to the northern reserves. So to get as much experience and a wide variety of tasks as possible, so they're the most kind of rounded at the end of it, that they can walk straight into a job and take all those skills with them.
What happens to your graduates?
So I say they're here for 18 months, so they also have a training budget, so they're able to get additional qualifications that we can't provide, things like brush cutters and chainsaws and tractors, things that are usually quite expensive to actually fund yourself. So we're really fortunate that Yorkshire Dales Millennium Trust provide that training budget as well. So once they've completed their 18 months, they go through an official endpoint assessment and get their qualification, and then they can go off into the world. If we've got the opportunity within the Trust, we'll look to employ them, because obviously they know the Trust, they know the reserves, they've got the skill set, but otherwise they'll be essentially industry ready. They can apply for those next jobs and really then start their career.
So Scott, we're just emerging from the wood here now at last.
Yep, so we're now properly onto the Nature Reserve and here on one of our most accessible bits of limestone pavement, and we've got Saskia and Amelie here who've been hard at work helping to restore this bit of the landscape.
So, Amelie and Saskia, can you just introduce yourselves and tell me what you're doing here today?
Hi, I'm Saskia. I'm one of the Nature Reserves apprentices for the Wildlife Trust. I work with Amelie and Scott on the Southern Reserves team, and today we're at Hutton Roof, which is a limestone pavement reserve.
Amelie, you're Saskia's partner in crime.
Yes.
So can you explain to me a bit about your reasons for joining the scheme?
Well, when I was at university, I was doing a politics degree, and although you can help the environment through politics, I kind of realised I wanted to do something more practical. I did environmental activism before, but then during my time at uni, I did this young people's programme called Chiltern Rangers. I got loads of practical experience, and then I was like, that's what I want to do. I really want to make a difference on the ground level and be outdoors meeting people. So after that, I applied for loads of jobs, and I was lucky enough to get this one.
Not a very obvious career path from a degree in politics and international relations to being a conservation apprentice.
No, it's not. It took me a long time after uni just to realise this is what I wanted to do and sort of accept it. But it's been brilliant. I've loved every minute of it, and I wouldn't go back now, definitely not.
And Saskia, you changed the warmth of an office, didn't you, for this kind of freezing life?
I did. So my previous role was actually also with the Wildlife Trust as an admin assistant. And I did that for just over a year, and in that time spent also a lot of my free time volunteering across Cumbria with lots of different organisations, including the Wildlife Trust, but the National Trust and Friends of the Lake District as well. you realise that the office is not necessarily where you want to spend all of your time. But like Emily, I wouldn't trade the horrible weather days for anything. I really, really enjoy it. It's so much fun. And the apprenticeship itself is just such a learning experience. We get so many amazing opportunities doing it.
Is it very physical? Is it very hard work?
It can be. There are some days where it's harder than others. We have a huge team of volunteers that come out with us as well, actually, that usually are able to work way harder than we are. But they've been doing it longer, so we'll be like them. We want to grow up to be like them.
So what sort of tasks do you have to do?
Well, at the moment, because it's winter, we're mostly doing scrub clearance, so that just involves taking off the scrub so specialist species can grow. And here at Hutton Roof, it means butterflies can get through, like the high brown fritillary.
So, for example, this is a bit of hazel that's growing up through this grike. And actually right next to it you can see one of those specialist species, which is hart's tongue fern, which is this really shiny fern here. So what we do is we saw as far down the base of the tree as possible. And it's essentially like coppicing, where you're cutting it down as low as it can go. And it just slows down the growth, and eventually it will grow back and we'll have to come back and do it all again, but hopefully not for a few years.
It's a gorgeous place, isn't it?
I think it's beautiful. If you go to the top of Hutton Roof, you can see across Morecambe Bay all the way down to Barrow. And when you're on the limestone pavement, we've been taught about all these specialist species, and it's sort of like your eyes are open. Now you can see all these incredible things that before you would just walk straight past.
So what sort of things do you reckon you've learned so far, Emily?
I've learnt a lot. Mostly, for me, I think I've learnt a lot of species ID, which I wasn't good at before. I've learnt a lot more about the practical side of things, and like taking tools out to the site, which I didn't do before because it was sort of being presented to me on the day, and just the backbone of stuff a bit more, which I didn't get to do. So sort of like Scott taught us about QGIS, which is a mapping tool which helps you map nature reserve sites.
What other skills do you expect to acquire?
Just loads of different things, really. I mean, species ID is one of them, but just improving on everything we've learned. And as it comes into summer, obviously there's going to be more flowers and things like that, so we're going to get better at that. And also another charity called Yorkshire Dales Millennium Trust funds us to complete loads of tickets that help us with conservation. So I think me and Saskia are both hoping to get things like our chainsaw ticket and other things as well. So we've already got our first aid one, outdoor first aid. And there'll be more opportunities to do that as the year goes on.
And what sort of other tasks would you be doing, say, on different reserves?
So the week before Christmas I went to Smardale, which is just at the edge of the Yorkshire Dales, and we were doing brush cutting there. And at Smardale there's very steep banks, so it was quite hard for someone new to brush cutting, so I was sort of balancing a lot and cutting down all this scrub, but it's brilliant to be able to practice. It's good to, feel a bit more useful after just starting and not knowing very much, and now we're able to actually help and make a difference.
I don't know what they'd do without you now.
I think they'd be all right.
What have you sacrificed in order to take up this opportunity?
I honestly, personally don't feel like I've had to sacrifice a lot. Although it has meant I've had less disposable income, I think it's fair in a way because we're learning so much. We're not fully trained. So to be working here full time and being paid, I think is just incredible in itself. And I'm just really grateful for the opportunity to learn. And Scott is so brilliant at taking time to teach us everything, taking time out of his day. And I think that sort of pays in itself for what we're doing out here.
And where do you both want to go from here?
I would love to stay around in Cumbria. I'm really passionate about the area and conservation in the area. So basically practical conservation or survey work contracting somewhere in Cumbria, but we'll see.
I think for me an assistant warden role would be good, but honestly anything. I'm just going to see where it takes me. It's still very new.
So I've come up to the north of the county now to meet one of the graduates of the apprenticeship scheme. He completed the course a couple of years ago in 2022.
So I'm Jack Dryden. I work on the Northern Nature Reserves. Been in the role for about almost 2 years as an assistant reserve officer, and 18 months-ish before that as an apprentice. So yeah, it's been sort of almost 4 years of just constant learning, completely new to this sort of field of work, when I started, as most people are when they start an apprenticeship. And yeah, still learning, still having fun. It's a nice place to work.
So why did you become an apprentice in the first place, Jack?
I never really knew what I wanted to do. I was always jealous of people that did know what they wanted to do, like fresh out of school. So I just sort of followed the route of, doing what you're good at. Went and did a history degree. Although I enjoyed it, I was sort of like, I don't know. I like history, but I don't know what I'm going to do with it, at the end of university. So when I came out of university, I got a job with the National Trust at one of the historic properties. There I learned about ranger roles. That really piqued my interest. So I was just applying for loads and loads of roles, not hearing back because it is quite a competitive field. And then it turned out that an apprenticeship with the Wildlife Trust came up, applied for that. Got it, which I was really chuffed about because I'd never even had an interview in the sort of sector, never mind a job offer. So yeah, that was how I got into the apprenticeship, and I think that's the beauty of apprenticeships, in that they can sort of pick up people that fall through the cracks of not quite knowing what they want to do. You often think that you can only do it as a young person fresh out of school, but for me it was half a decade later after sort of going through university and everything. So I'm grateful for apprenticeships. They're a good thing for people of all ages, I think.
And Jack, how did it equip you? How did the apprenticeship equip you, both in terms of practical skills and also in terms of your confidence?
Yeah. The past few years I've always been quite open about the fact I was sort of really anxious as a young person, in my teens and early 20s. And I still was when I started the apprenticeship. And one of the good things about it was that you're working with people all the time. And my sort of struggle was anxiety, and particularly social anxiety. And, each week I was out sort of meeting new people, and, new interactions, doing new tasks that you're unfamiliar with. All of it's challenging at first in quite a way that feels that anxiety, but the more you do it, the easier it becomes. So yeah, that was something I've really enjoyed about the apprenticeship, and that working with people, which usually was something that I'd sort of hold back from. It's something that's become sort of my favourite thing about the job, in particular working with volunteers. Getting to meet new volunteers every week is just it's so interesting.
You've got another role now, haven't you?
I've got my first line managing gig, I suppose, with Michael, who's a new apprentice. So yeah, that's been a new experience. One I'm a bit nervous for to begin with. Still am sometimes, but it's been a really good sort of experience.
It's come full circle. You were an apprentice a couple of years ago, and now you're training the next generation of apprentices.
Yeah, it just came sort of out of nowhere. Kevin, my line manager, asked me one day if it'd be something I'd be interested in trying, and usually I'd be a bit nervous to dive right in and say yeah, and I was just like, oh yeah, go on then, I'll give it a go. It'll be a good experience, and hopefully I don't put him off conservation for the rest of his life.
So Michael, has he managed to put you off conservation for the rest of your life?
No, he's made me very interested in sort of doing this type of conservation-based work. It's sort of always been a thing I've wanted to do, so getting this has just made me more enthusiastic about it.
So is it long-held ambition then, Michael?
Yes, sort of since high school I've always thought I'd want to be involved in conservation-based work. So I went to the University of Cumbria to do a conservation-based degree, and that sort of taught me sort of the scientific side of conservation, but I wanted to move on to more practical stuff.
Has it been very physical? Is it a physically taxing role?
Some aspects, yeah. I mean, it's like with tree planting, it's a lot of digging holes, and then with the bridges we've been doing here, it's a lot of hammering in planks and stuff. So, but there are times when, in the future we're going to be doing monitoring, so it's a bit less taxing, but it's all very interesting to do.
OK, well, thanks very much for your time here at Gosling Site this morning, Jack and Michael. So where are you off to now?
Up next on our list is a visit to Icott Hill. We've got some volunteers coming. We're going to plant some juniper. Juniper was planted there about 10 years ago, so I'll have still been in school. I always like to make Kevin feel old and tell him that he was planting trees while I was in school. So yeah, we're going to go and do that with volunteers. There's always stuff to do at Icott, a wall gap we've got to fill and things like that. So yeah, that's what we're busy with.
Well, good luck at Icott, and thanks very much for your time.
No, thank you. Thanks for speaking to us.
Well, that was a brilliant set of interviews there out on Hutton Roof, and you can hear the enthusiasm both from Saskia and Amelie, and from Michael as well up in the north, about everything that they get out of these apprenticeships. But one of the things for me is that I think Cumbria Wildlife Trust, and especially the Nature Reserves Department, is a bit of a think department. It's such a great job. And when people come into this job, they never want to leave, So there's a lot of us who've been here for quite a long time taking up all those jobs. We have the most amazing success rate in getting people into careers in nature conservation. As well as the apprenticeships, we have student placements, people who are on sandwich years from university. And we also have lots of other opportunities, including the marine team internships, which happen every year as well. But so many of them get through and then get careers in conservation. And some of them I now meet in meetings, high-level meetings, because they're working for Natural England, or they're working for the Environment Agency, or they're working for the RSPB, and have been for a long time. Danny, what do you feel you got in the main from doing your youth trusteeship? Because that was such a brilliant opportunity.
Yeah, it was. So I learned an awful lot about what goes on behind the scenes and what's expected of a trustee. And we learnt a lot of information that was really interesting and wasn't public. So I couldn't just say, before we purchased Skiddaw, I couldn't tell anyone.
Wow. That must have been a bit of a burden keeping that a secret.
Yeah.
I found it a burden keeping it a secret, Danny, don't worry.
But it was all part and parcel and of the whole experience. And we debated important issues and we did votes, and yeah, it was really interesting, really.
I suppose you get to see the kind of nuts and bolts of the governance of an organisation like this, which the people who are out on the ground cutting scrub on Hutton Roof, they're not going to see that side of things as well. So it gives you that much more, that rounded kind of experience of a conservation organisation like ours.
Yeah, it really did. Yeah. So sometimes people, like guests, would come in and speak to the board about what they were doing in the trust. So we had members of the peatland team and the grasslands team, and they would say like how they're repairing, peat bogs, for example, and what they were doing. And I remember, I think it was last December, not December, the previous December, someone came in from the peatland team and they said something like when they were moving bowls, that to use a helicopter to videos of how it was done.
Brill. So we'll go back to Liz now. And Liz, one of the other things about getting young people involved, we've gone through our apprenticeships and our internships, our student placements and all the rest of it, and all these people getting great kind of hands-on experience of working within a nature conservation organisation. But we also do a lot in terms of education, and with young people right from preschool all the way up to kind of sixth form, and whether that's out on reserves, in forest schools. We even have a bog school goes on at the moment. And in the north of the county, Freya Lovett's doing fantastic work with schools in Carlisle. And Liz went out to meet Freya and also to talk to some of the children who have been getting involved at the Richard Rose Central Academy in Carlisle.
So hi Freya, can you tell me where we are and why you brought me here today?
Yeah, we're at Richard Rose Central Academy, and I've brought you here today to show you Sustainable Central, which is the school's eco-environmental club. And it's a group of students between Year 7 and Year 11, and they're just trying to do lots of environmental things. And they're really enthusiastic and really passionate. So yeah, they're really lovely group.
And what's your role?
So I'm an outdoor learning officer. It's a project funded by the Ernest Cook Trust, who do a lot of work to help connect young people to nature. Kind of teenage years are the time that they found most people are least connected to nature.
That's really interesting. Why do you think that is?
I don't know, I guess there's quite a lot of other things going on in their life, like lots of other hobbies and interests, and yeah, lots of technology, and probably just quite busy with school and homework and revision. So just, might not have as much time to spend outside, and might not always be the coolest thing.
But this isn't the only school, is it, that you're involved with?
No, I work with a few other schools all over Carlisle, doing various things to help them either improve their school grounds for nature or just get outside into nature a bit more. Some of the schools are trying to improve their school grounds by building raised beds so they can grow food there. Some of them are trying to do things like making bird feeders and bug hotels and wildflower meadows. So yeah, they've got loads of brilliant ideas. I'm just helping them because it's really important to get the next generation interested in nature and learning about it and being excited and enthusiastic about it, just so they keep that connection and want to keep looking after it for the rest of their lives.
Freya, as well as inspiring the young people with a love for nature that you hope is going to endure, does Cumbria Wildlife Trust also bring practical support?
Yeah, we do. We have some funding available for the schools, so we can buy materials for them, like the wildflower seeds and bulbs, and I can provide my time to help take the group out. And some of the teachers don't know as much about nature and wildlife as some of the other teachers, so I help teach them as well, so they feel more confident taking a group outside, even when I'm not there with them.
Well, thanks, Freya, and let's go inside now and find the Sustainable Central group.
Okay, yeah, great. They're a really lovely bunch, so you'll love meeting them.
I'm sure I will.
Right, so if you remember, everyone, this week we are doing our RSPB bird count, and this is a massive thing that happens all over the country every year, and lots and lots of schools get involved, and they select 1 hour that they will go out into their open space and they will count the number of bird species that they can see. So our bird counting will begin now at 3:15, and off we go.
So, Mrs. Hepburn, you've sent the children off to do the bird count, and I wonder if you could just take a minute to tell me a little bit more about the group?
Yeah, Sustainable Central started about 5 years ago. It was quite informal. There was just a tiny little group of Year 7 students who were very keen about saving the planet. And so we just started to meet at lunchtimes, and we just got involved in looking at the different trees and the species in the grounds and thinking about how we could make the grounds better. And I think the thing that we're probably most proud of is the memorial garden space that we created last year. And that was something that we, as a community, as a school community, really wanted to invest in, because we have tragically lost a number of students at the school, and we all felt that we needed a space that would support our well-being and our health and would allow us that time and space to be able to reflect on that and to feel a little bit more peaceful.
And tell me about the students. What year are they in? How many of them come?
It has remained steady between about 15 and 20, which I think on a Friday at 3 o'clock, when most of us are wanting to go home and start the weekend, is pretty spectacular. There's a core group of kind of mainly Year 11s, but obviously they're going to be moving on to sixth form or possibly college next year. And so we're really kind of keen to make sure that the message goes down through the school to the 7s. And we do have 3 or 4 Year 7s, a couple of Year 10s, and it's building. The word is getting out.
And tell me a bit about what they're doing this term.
Next week, we have a fire pit. So we're kind of just going to enjoy the outdoors, and we're going to sit outside with our warm clothes on and roast marshmallows and have some hot chocolate and just enjoy being outside. And today we're doing our bird count. So, and constantly looking at our bulbs. We've got planting trees coming up in March. It's a busy club.
So I've joined Jaden, Imogen, Maureen and Harley. So tell me what you're doing here today.
We are doing a bird watch, and we're basically just counting the birds within the area. So, we know which areas are more full of life.
So tell me a bit about the kind of projects you've already done here.
Well, our main project last year, we created a memorial garden because sadly as a school we've lost some students. So we just wanted that nice place to remember them. We had people that did the artwork on it, we had people that did the gardening, and it's just been nice to see the school come together to do this.
I know, Jaden, you've been involved in the club for several years now, and Imogen and Hayden probably for quite a while as well. So what have been the best bits that you've done?
The Keele University trip. We went down to Keele University. We had a sustainable lecture, and we spent overnight at the university. It was very nice. And we did a few sustainable activities, and then we obviously went to Alton Towers because it's right around the corner as well.
Well, I'm glad Alton Towers got in there.
Yeah.
I feel me being here since Year 7 and watching it grow into what it is today, it's just nice to have that this club is a sort of its own community with everyone everyone there wants to be there and they want to make a difference, and it's nice to see that it's over the years it's grew.
We've had a lot of trips out of school as well as the Kill University trip, and we've learned a lot about like how other schools are, being sustainable, and it's really fun to like get to know about other places and try and incorporate how they've become more sustainable into how we're becoming more sustainable. It's a really good thing for our school. Yeah, it's inspiring, really.
And we've talked quite a bit about sustainability. What about how you feel about the natural world and, biodiversity? How important is that to you?
Biodiversity is like the key thing that makes our world whole. And it's sad to see people ruining that, chopping down the rainforests or polluting the rivers. The fact that every species deserves a chance to survive on this planet. We maintain a biodiversity in school. We've had times where we've had surprise animals in our school. We had
a hedgehog.
A
Duck.
We had a duck called Vanessa who laid eggs in the planter, which our tree is now in. We fed her. We made sure she had water. We made sure no other students disturbed her. And in the end, she walked out with about 7 ducklings, just crossing
the road to the river.
Yeah, crossing the road across to the field. It's just a nice way to know that we've actually helped her, made sure that she wasn't disturbed, and maybe now that she's comfortable, we made her comfortable, there could be a chance that she could come back in the spring.
There's also the flowers that we've planted in our memorial garden, which also helping with keeping the bees alive and maintaining that diversity and improving it within our school grounds, making sure that there's pollinators able to survive.
So, Maureen, have you been keeping an eye out for the birds?
Yeah, I haven't seen any, so I just hope that they come.
Maybe we should leave them to get used to the idea there's stuff out there for them, and maybe you could take me over to the memorial garden. That'd be good.
Yes.
Thank you. You brought me to the new memorial garden that you were so instrumental in creating. Can you tell me a bit about how you feel about nature, how you feel about the natural world, how you feel about being outside, and why this particular spot's important?
Well, I've always grown up with, my grandma, she has a very nice garden, and we always used to, plant the seeds and stuff and just make it so colourful during summer and stuff. And it's not like it's one of those neat gardens, it's so the bees, and it's just for the wildlife.
So I've grown up around nature, and it's always nice to have that little bit of the outdoors, around you at all times. It's quite grounding as well, hearing all the birds around here. It's lovely.
We've been joined by one of the other students. What's your name?
Kevin.
So, Kevin, what does nature mean to you?
Well, like the others, I've also grown around nature quite a lot. I've had big mango trees near my house, monkeys, snakes, all the dangerous animals, but...
I guess this was not Carlisle.
No, it wasn't, but still it was quite fascinating to see how they live, even with humans being around, But here in Carlisle, it's quite nice because I've seen a lot of greenery around in the city. Whenever I cycle in the morning to school, the sun's bright, the sky's pink, flowers blooming and bees, so it's quite refreshing, it feels nice, it makes you energetic in the morning.
And why did you join the club?
Firstly, it was because of friends, and then I was told that, we are making a garden, and I got quite excited because I like to do active work. And then while building this garden, well, it took quite a lot of time and hard work, but...
We pulled through.
Yeah, we did pull through.
Yeah, it was...
It was quite fun making it.
There's a lot of bad news out there just now about climate change and net zero. Does doing stuff at the Eco Club make you feel you can make a difference?
So the climate change, it's because we are the one who make the climate change. I think we should change our ways, because it's we are the ones that make everything really bad. So we should plant more trees, and instead of driving cars, we should maybe walk or cycle.
Does it make you feel better then, Maureen, that you can join this club and do a little something to redress that balance?
Yeah, it's like really good to like help the earth improve.
Sometimes I do feel worried, but when I come here, I feel like I'm making a small difference whenever I'm either cutting weed or planting some seeds.
I think when you see the stuff on the media about climate change, like if you take it seriously, it can be quite scary. And when I come to this club, it's quite peaceful. I realise that I'm actually doing something. I'm not just sitting there. I'm waiting for it to happen.
Well, thanks very much, guys. That was fantastic. You're also thoughtful and fluent. It's made my job very easy.
Right, well, what a brilliant set of interviews from those kids in Carlisle, and what a fantastic after-school club. We never had after-school clubs like that when I was at school. But at times have moved on. I was just thinking that before about when I did my apprenticeship, when I did my scheme, my environmental training, it was called. You got an extra tenner. You got an extra tenner on the dole to go and do your training. And I came out with this City and Guilds, which kind of set me up in conservation. But it's brilliant to see Freya getting involved with those kids and getting those kids with that connection to the outdoors, and it's about connecting young people with the outdoors and with nature at an early age. We do have lots of other opportunities for young people to be involved, even very young people. And we've got watch groups. We've got 4 watch groups over the county which meet, getting young people involved. And we've also got our nature tots at Foulshaw. And like I said earlier, the Bog School. Where do you see yourself next, Danny?
That's a difficult one.
So you've obviously got you've got your horticulture apprenticeship behind you already, which is just brilliant hands-on, experience. And then you've got this wonderful overview of the governorship of the trust. And I hear from somebody that you've also become a parish councillor recently.
Yes, I have recently became a parish councillor. It was since September, I think. Yes.
And you've been volunteering on nature reserves as well.
Yeah, I've got 2 booked in for February. Yeah, Drimbrough Moss and Alton Moss was the other one.
So do you see yourself following a career in nature conservation?
Either that or being in a private garden, yes.
A hands-on, hands-dirty kind of job.
Yeah, I have worked in office in the past, and I prefer to be outside.
Yeah, excellent.
So, yeah.
And that came through in those early interviews as well, didn't it, with the apprentices? I'm afraid my job is so much more office-based these days. I do get outside. I'm going outside this afternoon, actually, but I don't get outside quite as much as I used to, or as much as I'd like to. Anyway, thank you, Danny. That's been excellent. Once again, keep your ideas coming in, all you listeners, about things that we might cover within the podcast. We've had some great ideas in recently. If you've got any feedback about the podcast, if you really like the podcast, tell your friends and spread it around. Give us a like on Spotify. And please do get in touch with your ideas at mail@cumbriawildlifetrust.org.uk. And thanks loads to Liz for those wonderful interviews. Thank you, Danny. And we'll see everybody next month. Bye-bye.